매일매일 운동하기를 실천하고 있는 동탄 왕코입니다. 아침이에요. 퇴근하고 왔습니다. 오늘도 운동을 해야겠죠?
Thank you, that was so lovely. I hope the weekend is watching and paying attention. No, I hope he's not.
Coronavirus. To get daily news updates in your inbox, sign up for the CNN newsletter. Coronavirus. Fact versus fiction.
A troubling new report from the New York Times paints a chaotic picture of the White House effort to secure medical supplies for frontline healthcare workers. According to documents and interviews, the supply chain task force, headed by Jared Kushner, has been plagued by inexperience, confusion, and political favoritism. Our own Sarah Murray has been digging into what went wrong with America's national stockpile of protective equipment. Sarah, tell us what you found out.
That's right, Wolf. We found a president who was slow to act to ramp up production, states that were desperate for supplies, and a stockpile that was woefully understocked for a crisis like this. As governors, doctors, and nurses desperately pleaded for supplies from the federal stockpile to protect against the deadly coronavirus,
we're running low on masks.
They don't have the proper equipment. They go into those rooms with fear.
We need these resources now.
Suddenly, a little-known division of Health and Human Services, the Strategic National Stockpile, was front and center. But there wasn't nearly enough in store to arm the entire nation to fight the coronavirus pandemic.
Many of the states were totally unprepared for this. But we're not an ordering clerk.
Trump was slow to use the Defense Production Act to get the private sector to ramp up production, and states wound up in an international bidding war for medical supplies.
We're all competing against one another. It shouldn't be states having a, Wild West fight over this.
When they turned to the stockpile for quick relief, it was understocked, its federal stewards in disarray.
Here in Illinois, we've maybe received 10% of what we needed. And so they've turned it back to the states and said, well, you guys are on your own.
Other states say they received vital supplies that were expired, deteriorating, or malfunctioning. A spokesperson for HHS said states should inspect products as they arrive and acknowledged that states received less than they hoped for, but each state, quote, received its fair share. Overall, the federal response appeared erratic. Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law and senior advisor, was brought in to help manage supply chain challenges. But another controversy was created when he claimed the stockpile was meant for the federal government, not for states, in direct contradiction to the website about the stockpile.
The notion of the federal stockpile was it's supposed to be our stockpile. It's not supposed to be state stockpiles.
The day after Kushner made those remarks, the government's website was changed from a long mission statement saying it steps in for a public health emergency severe enough to cause local supplies to run out to a shorter statement that says supplies can be used as a short-term stopgap buffer.
There was no sense of urgency.
The picture was made more complicated when a whistleblower alleged the stockpile system had been corrupted by outside lobbyists. Dr. Rick Bright was recently ousted from a top position at HHS. He says when he began pressing his bosses to increase mask production months ago, the cries fell on deaf ears.
We didn't increase mask production. There was no effort to do that. What should have happened as soon as this pandemic hit.
Created in 1999, the stockpile includes about $8 billion worth of supplies for the U.S. to deploy in natural disasters, terrorist attacks, and pandemics. It's shielded in secrecy. Exactly what is in the stockpile and where it is housed are classified.
When I took this over, it was an empty box.
Trump has blamed his predecessor, Barack Obama, for failing to replenish supplies after a 2009 swine flu outbreak, which the Obama administration failed to do partly because Congress wouldn't approve funding increases for the stockpile. A coronavirus relief package that passed recently included $16 billion for replenishing the stockpile.
We're building up our stockpile again like crazy.
But experts say it will take more changes, like increasing domestic manufacturing for medical gear, for the U.S. to be prepared for the next pandemic. Now, a FEMA spokesperson says that they are not actually replenishing the stockpile right now, despite the money that Congress has allocated right now. They are focused on replenishing states that supplies need, sending out those critical supplies. It's also worth noting that the Inspector General for HHS is investigating how the stockpile performed in the coronavirus crisis and whether it was used effectively, Wolf.
The president, Sarah, is replacing the Inspector General for the Department of Health and Human Services. Tell us what that could mean.
That's right. He's now nominated a permanent Health and Human Services Inspector General, and so it will be interesting to see, particularly as this man goes through the confirmation process, whether there are questions about how this investigation will proceed. Right now, according to the HHS IG, this report is due in 2021, but it's an open question whether the plans to investigate this or other ongoing investigations could change when a new Inspector General comes in, Wolf.
Yeah, and Jared Kushner's role behind the scenes, what are you learning about that?
That's right. This was really interesting. We've seen Jared Kushner jump in various different parts of this crisis. And, he was brought in by the president to get involved in the supply chain issues. And initially, that was a big relief to a lot of these sources at government agencies. There was a lot of confusion because HHS runs a stockpile, but then FEMA was getting involved in distributing it. And so it seemed good to have a point person, obviously with a very direct line to the White House, involved in this. But we saw as this process continued to play out, we saw this appearance in the briefing room where Jared Kushner muddled the matter of who the stockpile actually belongs to. And so in the end, I think there were some folks who were disappointed by the involvement in this.
All right, Sarah, thanks very much. Sarah Murray doing excellent reporting for us, as she always does. Much more news right after this.
Coronavirus is affecting an entire country, the world. Are we ready? In the beginning of outbreaks like this, nobody knows what's happening. We're determined to keep reporting the story.
Does that worry you? Because that seems to be what worries the American people. We're ready for it.
These are the moments where our humanity really does shine through. That's the hardest part.
It's heart-wrenching.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN.
With the English Premier League unable to play due to the coronavirus, the league's stars continue to make an impact off the pitch. Tottenham striker Harry Kane surprised the family of Archie Wilkes, a 4-year-old who contracted COVID-19 during treatment for cancer, with an inspirational video call on British morning television. The Manchester United midfielder Paul Pogba has turned his famous goal celebration, the dab, into a message of advice from the World Health Organization to cover your mouth when you cough or sneeze. Meanwhile, after the father of the late French boxer Alexis Bastien put his son's 2012 Olympics outfit up for auction to help raise money for healthcare workers in France, Manchester City defender Aymeric Laporte bought the boxing gear before returning it straight back to Bastien's dad. World class from Monsieur Laporte. For more information on how you can help during this pandemic, go to cnn.com/impact.
Opera houses, theatres and ballet schools all closed. But for the world's top dancers, the show must go on. From a kitchen for the Bolshoi to door frames and balconies for the Czech National Ballet. And now dancers from the Paris Opera House dancing to Prokofiev's Romeo and Juliet from home. Despite being filmed on cell phones, these performances are powerful, resonating with people all over the world.
Because they shot themselves at home, I think that there is something about being normal human beings, because they're exceptional dancers, but they're also fathers and mothers.
They performed this as a thank you to all the essential workers, saving lives and keeping the world going outside.
Business is all about making connections. But some connections connections are easier to make than others. With a CNN partner hotel, the world is always at your fingertips. CNN partner hotels, connected to your world.
So many questions about what is the federal government doing. Do you get the anger that is out here? They closed off this entire street. Do you really think you're a champion of the gay community? Sir, with all due respect, that's the argument of a 5-year-old.
I didn't start it.
All the places I've been and all the things I've seen, all the people I've talked to, I carry with me. They're part of what I do every night right here, holding the powerful accountable, keeping them honest.
AC 360 today only on CNN.
I'm David Culver in
몇 분 했지?
China, and this is CNN.
10분밖에 안 했어.
What a difference only 2 months makes. On March 5th, there were only 11 confirmed deaths from coronavirus here in the United States. 11 deaths.
팔굽혀펴기 딱 10개만 더 하고 오늘은
39
그만하겠습니다.
deaths here in the United States. What a difference 2 months
피곤해요. 너무 힘들어.
makes. And these were all wonderful people. I want to share with you some more personal stories of Americans who have died from this coronavirus. Anthony Velez, he was only 32 years old from Queens, New York. His father says he was a gentle soul who brought joy to everyone. Despite the challenges of living with cerebral palsy, Anthony savored life's simple pleasures, from food to travel to music. Robert